Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. Today we'll be discussing the history of the undead, zombie-like creatures known as Inferi. Although most widely referred to by us Muggles as Inferi, this description is actually a plural indication of the singular Inferius. Both the singular and plural names of these creatures are of Latin origin, with Inferi translating to underworld, and Inferius being a derivative of Inferus, which means below. J.K. Rowling has confirmed that the etymology for the Inferi was meant to be a reference to the idea that they are lesser beings than humans and that they are not part of the world of the living. Although similar to zombies, the Inferi were created by Rowling for the wizarding world of Harry Potter, with the intention of being distinctly different from their rather infamous undead counterparts. They are the cursed corpses of previously living people of either Muggle or magical background, who have been brought back from the dead by a dark witch or wizard using rather complex magic. The intention of the curse is to create a warrior or guardian out of the dead person. An Inferius can be created by killing someone and then using their dead body, or by using a corpse that is already without life. For example, in order to create the Inferi that Voldemort used to protect his Horcrux that he hid in the remote dark cave that Harry and Dumbledore visited in 1997, it's believed that the Dark Lord went out and murdered a bunch of homeless Muggles, as well as an unlucky wizard or two. After killing these people, he then cursed their dead bodies to become his mindless servants, tasked with protecting the Horcrux from intruders. It would seem that Inferi can also be created by dark magic, without the actual presence of a witch or wizard, as Harry indicated that if he were to be drowned in the lake alongside the other Inferi, he too would become one of the dead guardians of Voldemort's Horcrux, cursed with the same eternal responsibility of guarding the cursed locket. Although I suppose that may be just an assumption made by Harry, as there's no real proof to support this belief. Which brings me to the fact that the dark magic used to create the Inferi is said to preserve these beings for all of eternity, unless they come up against fire, as a flame is the only force known to be able to destroy an Inferius. This is due to the fact that dark magic and the complicated curse used to create Inferi has yet to discover a way to keep the corpses from burning. This same dark magic is also able to curse each Inferius with specific, let's call them instructions. For example, they could be bewitched to guard a particular person or valuable item, as Voldemort used them to protect his Horcrux with the following stipulations. An Inferi-infested lake separated the entrance of the cave from the Horcrux. Any attempt to use a summoning charm to get the Horcrux would cause one or more Inferi to leap out of the water to block the spell's effect. If the water is disturbed, the Inferi would emerge and attempt to drag the intruder into the water to drown. In terms of their appearance, Inferi's similarities with zombies are arguably the strongest. In most cases, they are very clearly undead corpses in varying states of decay. In addition to the obvious decomposition of their bodies, an Inferius's cloudy white eyes are one of its most discernible features that separate it from the living. That said, each Inferius looks different from one another, as they not only resemble the human who they once were, but their body's state of decay will reflect the time in which they were cursed to become Inferi. If they had been newly killed, for instance, they won't look as grisly as someone who had been dug up from a grave and dead for 100 years. No matter what state of rot they were in before being cursed, however, they do all look rather dead in appearance, as perceived by Harry when he sees them up close after they emerge from the lake in the cave housing Voldemort's Horcrux. But though gashes appeared in their sodden rags and their icy skin, they had no blood to spill. They walked on, unfeeling, their shrunken hands outstretched toward him, and as he backed away still farther, he felt arms enclose him from behind. Thin, fleshless arms, cold as death. But where did these unearthly beings come from? We know that they need to be created by dark magic, so who created the spell that brought the first ever Inferius to, life? Of course, whoever came up with the curse would have had to be, for one, an experienced and skilled witch or wizard, and two, incredibly evil indeed. In the past, I've suggested a couple of names of wizards from centuries long ago that I think could have fit the bill. There's Inquisitus, the dark wizard who drove himself to madness while conducting illegal, secret experiments on the island of Azkaban in the 1400s. Since he's rumoured to be creator of the Dementors, it's not that big of a leap to assume that he also may have created something as heinous as the Inferi. It's also believed that he would lure lost sailors to the island in order to perform his dark experiments on them, and while some have suggested that these sailors are perhaps the very beings that became Dementors, who's to say that they weren't actually the first Inferi? Another theory is that a wizard by the name of Godolo could have been the initial dark wizard who brought Inferi into this world. As one of the first to own the powerful Elder Wand, he was said to have conducted incredibly dangerous and dark magic while he possessed it. But while we may not know for certain who created the Inferi curse, we do know that these undead beings have popped up through the wizarding world's history over the past few hundred years. In the late 1800s, a school-aged wizard by the name of Sebastian Sallow is said to have come into possession of a relic that had the power to summon Inferi. And then again in 1899, before the turn of the century, the infamous dark wizard, Gellert Grindelwald, spoke of creating an army of Inferi to support his cause of the greater good. Grindelwald, who alongside a young, ambitious Albus Dumbledore, sought to unite the three Deathly Hallows in pursuit of the wizarding world that would subjugate Muggles. Grindelwald's belief that he required the Resurrection Stone, the Deathly Hallow that could bring the dead back to the world of the living, complicates the idea that Inferi are created by a complex spell. That said, I suppose we can chalk this up to youthful misconception. Perhaps a young Grindelwald and Dumbledore did not yet know enough about dark magic to know that it was actually a curse, and not a magical artifact that could create an Inferius. Then of course there's the horde of Inferi that Voldemort created to protect the Horcrux he made out of Salazar Slytherin's locket. The first known contact with this particular army of Inferi was back in 1979, when Sirius Black's younger brother, Regulus, discovered where the Horcrux was and went in search of it in order to destroy it. Tragically, after consuming the cursed drink of despair in order to reach the Horcrux, he became unbearably thirsty and drank from the lake, disturbing its surface and activating the Inferi from the depths below. It's assumed that Regulus was killed by one or more Inferius, dragged down into the lake and drowned. Whether or not he now lies dead upon the bottom of the lake, or has joined Voldemort's cursed warriors, remains a mystery to this day. Then again, in 1997, Dumbledore and Harry went to the cave in search of the same Horcrux, not knowing that Regulus's house elf creature had actually been successful in removing it from the cave. As Regulus had before him, Dumbledore drank the potion and became insatiably thirsty, and Harry disturbed the lake in order to get him some water. Unlike Regulus, however, Dumbledore and Harry managed to escape the wrath of Inferi and made it out of the cave alive after Dumbledore managed to use fire magic to ward them off. That same year, it was reported by the Daily Prophet that Mundungus Fletcher was arrested and sent to Azkaban for impersonating an Inferius while committing a burglary. In more recent years, there have been rumours that the Haitian national Quidditch team used Inferi to intimidate other teams that they were competing against. This is said to be proven true during the opening ceremony of the 2014 Quidditch World Cup when a horde of Inferi attacked the crowds. That said, I'm certainly not suggesting that this should be taken as canon. And with that, we've come to the end of today's video. What did you think? Did I miss anything? Please share your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, remember, it does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live.